Good afternoon, YouTube. Happy December and welcome back to Fat Cat Collections. Today's video topic is how good are Invicta watches? And I like to put up these videos, and a lot of times you might see different variations of different videos, but I always have something to say, and it's really important for me to just spread the word in the watch community, and I use that word community very lightly. You know, all joking aside, and in all seriousness, there are a lot of really great people in the watch community. And when I say great people, I don't know these people personally, but a lot of the folks who comment to my channel tend to be like-minded. If you watch my videos about watch reviews, you tend to not be a watch snob. You tend to be kind of in that kind of category where you just really appreciate watches for what they are. They're jewelry, right? Of course, they are tools as well, right? But they're, you know, they're watches are really something to each individual wearer, right? So they could be not just, you know, they might be more than just jewelry. They might be more than just tool. They might be a combination of those things, right? They could be a status symbol, right? And a lot of times with these watches, you get a lot of people who review stuff on YouTube, and a lot of times when it comes to things that people get passionate about, they get very, very opinionated about, and they become very defensive about. It's not like reviewing kind of a smart bulb, right? If you review a smart bulb, it's like, all right, this is what I like about it. I like it, you know, and then talk about the features, right? Just like you do a watch. But you don't have people generally trying to review a smart bulb and then bashing the person who buys that particular brand smart bulb if they don't like it. They might just say, hey, I prefer this brand over that brand. That's kind of the end of it. Because watches are such a personal thing, people really make them more personal than they really have to be. Now, you might be saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you telling other people not to make it personal? Because I take it so personal, right? And it's not really the fact that I take it personal. Like, my feelings don't get hurt if somebody disagrees with what I think about a particular watch, right? My feelings don't ever get hurt because I really ultimately don't give a shit what other people think. But there are people who are very easily influenced. There are people out there who might just take what these so-called watch experts say, and I don't mean that necessarily that these guys don't have a good, tool belt of knowledge, right, when it comes to watches. But they always let their opinions and their tastes kind of win over the argument about quality. And you see it across the board. Guys who don't like the Invicta brand, guys who will make excuses for why a brand has heritage and why a brand doesn't. Ultimately, all that is just really meaningless. What really comes down, it doesn't matter what something's sold for. It doesn't matter what something used to be. It doesn't matter really about their history. Now, again, there might be people who that is very important. That's fine. But my point is always buy a watch for why you like it, but don't try to convince other people that those are valid reasons on why they shouldn't like something, right? So today, again, I want to talk about how good are Invicta watches. So just a little bit of history about me if you're new to this channel, because ultimately the guys who follow me, the guys who watch me might say, hey, we've heard this stuff before, but remember, a lot of people on YouTube aren't subscribers, and there's a lot of people who've never seen the channel and never hear what I have to say about watches. And I know because I get these comments day in, day out of people telling me, hey, I've always, I've heard bad things about the brand. I gave it a chance. I'm really happy, I get comments from people who own, Rolex and Omegas and have Invicta. And those are the honest guys who will tell you that the quality isn't really what it's cracked up to be, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. So, again, getting back to the question, how good is for the YouTube algorithm? How good are Invicta watches? They're exceptional watches. Now, if you start comparing quality difference in watches, and if you haven't checked out my video about the different types of quality with watches, I'm not going to have these watches here in front of me so I can, put them on their macro lens and show you the differences. There are guys who do that. But the biggest thing I want you to take from the quality difference in watches is that there is a point at which the quality becomes extremely apparent, and then that quality, that curve really kind of flattens out, and it really starts to become something you see under macro lens, something you see more on paper than you actually do with something that's tangible, you can feel and see, right? It's not the argument that guys will lead you to believe that there is, again, like this phrase coined by Archie Luxury, and then redistributed with all these other trolls who think that it's some original statement. The old shitter term, right? That's a shitter watch. And really, frankly, I don't think there is a shitter watch, period. Hands down. I think every watch has a purpose and has a place, and I don't think you necessarily have to bash a brand. You could say that a certain watch is inferior. Now, if you go looking at, let's say, a $20 watch, and I always say it, I hate using price to determine quality because it's not a factor. It just isn't. There's watches that I have that are $90 that are on par with watches that I have that cost $2,000, $4,000. And when I say on par, I mean on par. I don't mean like, oh, microscopic difference. I mean they're on par. They're like straight up. Now, there might be a little bit difference in movement, which might dictate why one might be a little more expensive. But again, do not use price as a factor in... use it as like kind of a tool, but don't use it as a deciding factor on what makes a watch better, because frankly, it's not true. Guys will make the same argument with, oh, well, compare a Ferrari to an Accord. Yeah, the Accord will outlast a Ferrari, if we want to talk about quality. The Ferrari is a lot more hand-intensive labor, right? You pay for all that. It doesn't mean it's better, okay? It's a performance machine, but if we start comparing a Ferrari to a Corvette, the Corvette is a way better value, and frankly, compared to most Ferraris, the Corvette will dust it, right? It's faster. I shouldn't say dust it, but it's faster. It's a better vehicle. So again, we can argue every point we want to argue for why we think something's better. Realistically, I try to give you guys a real-world, honest approach at watch quality. So again, let's talk specifically about the brand Invicta. So with Invicta, their brands, now if we want to look at price, their prices range really from like $40, I've seen them about that, 30 right now with the holiday season, 37 bucks, up to thousands, right? When it comes to Invicta, I think Invicta has a couple... There's two tiers in quality, in my opinion. I know they say they have the reserve level, then they have like their other watches, and then there's really just reserve level and then the rest of the quality. And I don't think that's really a fair assessment of their quality. There are watches that Invicta makes that, and again, I hate using price, but we have to use something, right? That generally the watches in that sub $100 price range, and again, I hate doing this, but just to give you guys just a little kind of a slight tool, right? Because you can't judge that either. Because we go looking at a watch that may cost $100 by Invicta, and then compare that to one of their Pro Divers that you get on sale for 60 bucks. The Pro Diver is a much better watch, right? I mean, you can feel the difference. So when it comes to like the quality with watches across the board, there are a couple major points, right? What's it made out of? What's the material? What's the movement? What's the crystal, which to me I think is kind of nonsense, but it is important to some folks. It's the scratch resistance of the crystal. There's several different versions out there, but I can tell you that I've never scratched a crystal. And of course, the finishing. That's really the major things you look at with quality. When we look at the Invicta brand, when we look at all their watches, there's not a watch you'll buy through Invicta and say, oh, this is terrible, right? This is not going to happen. But there are ones that are better than others, right? Damn, I was hoping to get a new watch today. Postman. So most of the Invicta watches are made of 316, if not all, are made of 316 stainless steel, if we look at ones on bracelet. Invicta uses, as far as their crystal, they use a flame fusion, which is kind of like a hybrid, they call it. It's their own kind of proprietary name. I don't know what it's actually made out of, whether it's like some sort of acrylic crystal. I highly doubt that Invicta is making some special crystal, right? Basically, you have, like, for instance, the different crystals. You'll have K1, which is something, again, Aragon uses their K1 crystal. I've only seen K1 on Aragon. You have Cristerna. I think Seiko uses Cristerna, I think. Is that right? Or no, maybe Hardlex. There's Hardlex. There's just acrylic. There's, again, the flame fusion. There's sapphire. And ultimately, if we want to look at, ultimately what they consider the best, it would be sapphire. Supposedly sapphire is the hardest to scratch, right? But it's not the most shatter resistant, right? So in order to get something that's very hard to scratch, okay, it has to be harder. The problem with harder things is they're not as shatter resistant. So generally when you get something that's softer, it's going to scratch easier, but it's more resistant to shattering. So Invicta, I believe they probably take some kind of a crystal and they probably coat it with something, right? I'm not really 100% sure, but it is called flame fusion. If we look at the real world use of these things, I have ceramic, I have Cristerna, I have plastic, I got them all. And ultimately, I've never scratched any of them. The one watch I can think of off the top of my head that does have a scratch is my dad's old 80s Seiko watch he gave me. That has a pretty big scratch in the crystal. That's the only one. I'm not sure how it happened, how he did it. I know I didn't do it. And that's the only watch. So of all my watches, the Seiko is the one with the scratch. Now, I think they use, is it Hardlex? I'm not 100% sure offhand. Remember, you can scratch any of these crystals, you know. Again, if you are somebody who really looks at specs on paper before you buy a watch or you're interested in a watch, you know, you probably are looking for, oh, has to have sapphire. A lot of guys are like that. Really doesn't make any difference at all. I mean, if you're a careful watch, if you're a guy who just wears his watch like I do and you're pretty careful about it, I mean, I'm not saying baby them. You know, my watches get little scratches here and there. But, you know, if you're not a guy who's going to, you know, like if your guy's going to work on this car, right? Get under there, detail it, you know, clean the wheels, you know, work on the engine bay, whatever you're doing, and you're going to wear your watch, there's a chance you're going to put more scratches in it, right? I generally kind of go take my watch off. So if you're careful, it's not really something you have to worry about. The most important thing I think of that when it comes to buying a watch is, what is it made of? Is it 3/16 stainless steel? Because if it is, you're getting a quality watch. Next to that would be just the movement. What movement does it have? Does it have just a very inexpensive entry-level quartz, which still tells, you know, more accurate time than your best Rolex, right? But what, you know, what's your passion? You know, for me, I prefer an automatic movement. I mean, even a really cheap automatic movement over a quartz, to me, it's just I just like that. It's just a personal preference. I like the fact that I don't have to ever worry about the battery. So that's a selling point for me. So these are the big things I look at. Now, most of the Invicta watches that you see, again, you don't have to worry about the crystal. You're not going to have a problem with it. You're just not. What movement? Again, Invicta will use cheap quartz movements in a lot of their watches, the more affordable watches. We start getting involved in the reserves and a lot of the other watches they have. You're going to start seeing some automatic movements, and generally, any automatic movement you get in Invicta is going to be a good movement. Invicta doesn't make their movements, so they're outsourcing, like most micro brands do, like most Kickstarter brands do. And remember, the old term in-house is really meaningless. Just because a company decides to make their movement 100% in-house, that doesn't mean that that movement is somehow superior to another company who just specializes in movements. If you look at like a Valjoux 7750, you know, compared to like a NH35, I don't really know if one's really superior. There might, if you're a watch maker or you're a guy who knows a lot about the mechanics of the watch, there might be things in there that might make it maybe more shock resistant. Maybe, you know, the addition of extra jewels. Maybe one's a chronograph, like the Valjoux is a chronograph, the Seiko NH35 is not. You know, there are probably things as far as how it's regulated and how accurate it could potentially be, you know, across the board, different movements. But if you don't really care about that, you're not, just because one might have a $400 movement and one might have a $30 movement, that doesn't necessarily mean that the $400 movement's going to last longer, or that it's, you know, that's somehow superior. It just might be a little bit more accurate. And ultimately, if you have a nice collection of watches, like I have over 160, I think, you know, you generally rotate your watches. So no matter what watch I have, if it's a quartz, I'm pulling the crown to help preserve the battery life and putting it in power saving mode. If it's an automatic, I'm going to have to set it when I put it back on anyway, because it's not going to, I'm probably not going to wear it within, you know, 48 hours, whatever the reserve is on the watch. So again, meaningless to me is, the accuracy is just meaningless, you know. Even if a watch is off by, you know, it's just funny to me when you look at people, the way they drive nowadays, they're all driving like maniacs. So to me, you don't really manage your time very well if you have to drive like a maniac to get everywhere. You're not leaving with enough time so you could drive the speed limit and drive like a normal, safe, normal person, right? So, I mean, again, you could have the best watch in the world, the most accurate time. It doesn't mean it's going to change your behavior. So what's the difference? If I leave 10 minutes earlier and my watch is, you know, maybe not 100% accurate, you know, I'm still getting there on time. I'm getting there on time when you're probably late and have the speed. Now, that's kind of a poor analogy or whatever I'm trying to say, but you guys understand what I'm saying. It's really, it's not really, to me, a huge selling factor. What really matters is, what does it look like? What kind of cool designs and styles does it have? And you know, and some of the parts that go into making the watch. If you're getting something like Invicta uses, they use good quality movements. Now again, when you open the back of Invicta, you might see a plastic ring. You may not see that. You're not going to see that on a modern day Rolex or a more higher tier watch, right? Those movements are generally, I kind of feel like the watch is built around the movement, whereas a company like Invicta is putting the watch is built not for the movement, but the movement is put into the watch. They have to adapt it. It's not really you know, focusing on the movement, where I think other brands that are like a Rolex are more focused on the what goes into the movement, the accuracy, some of the things, right? So, but again, for the average person who's buying a watch, if you grab that really expensive watch and you grab this $80 Pro Diver and you put them side by side, no one who's being honest can say that one is superior to the other. There might be those differences, right? Subtle, but you're not going to look at one and say the other one's a piece of garbage. It's just not. Anybody who says that is a complete liar. Now, not all the Invicta watches are even my taste. I like the big bowl watches, but I also like subtle watches, like this nice, subtle L'Oreal, right? So it really just comes down. I would really encourage people, if you're looking to buy a watch and add it, and starting a collection, don't listen to a lot of the knuckleheads out there who tell you that you have to have a certain price point or you have to have a certain brand to start a collection that's taken seriously. I could give a fuck about what idiot on Reddit might think about my watch collection. Ultimately at the end of the day, you buy what makes you happy. You buy what you like. Nobody's going to come up to me on the street and try to make fun of my watch, right? I mean, I just don't think, one, I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm some big tough guy here, but I'm just trying to say most people just wouldn't do that, right? And if they would, there's the potential. Usually tough people don't belittle people. Tough people don't really worry about what other people are doing until it's affecting them. Then they show you how tough they are, right? So again, to me, most people who are running their mouth online generally do that as an outlet because they don't do it in real life. So those people you just really should just separate yourself from, and don't look at places like Reddit for opinions on watches. Again, there's a lot of great YouTubers out there. Look at really the comment section on a lot of videos. When you look at what people have to say about a brand, look at what they have to say about what they own, And I can tell you, when I look at the watches I own, Sterling, Invicta, Aragon. I mean, I've even seen it with Aragon and Invicta. Oh, Aragon's superior to Invicta. No, it's not. Aragon and Invicta are on par. There might be a few things you like better about Aragon, like they usually use a dual push button deployant clasp. Invicta uses, friction clasp, right? That might be something that might sway, you might like Aragon a little more. Oh, the finishing better. No, it's not. The finishing on an Aragon watches are not superior to Invicta. They're on par with one another. They're both really nice. So what I like about the Invicta brand is just there's really not a brand out there that gives you that. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's one of the few brands out there that gives you just incredible value and just an incredible value and type of quality for a certain price point. And it is incredible. But again, not every Invicta you get is going to be on the same tier. If you go looking at their reserve level, yeah, you're pretty safe with that. But the Pro Divers are on reserve level quality, Again, I have one Invicta that I consider more entry level. It's still made of stainless steel. I don't think it's 316, but you can feel it. It just feels tinnier, feels a little lighter. It just feels cheaper, right? Still a decent watch. Now, it's a watch that was given to me by a coworker. I don't really wear it. I have too many watches in my collection. It doesn't really have any resale value. It's worth it. If you want to go to sell that thing on eBay, you're looking at, eBay takes like 17% on watches now. So, I believe it's 17. That's what my last one I sold was. So, again, if you start looking at, resale value, I don't think Invicta is the brand you go to if you're really worried about resale value. If you're real focus for you, if your real concern is I want to get this watch, I want to wear it, but I also want to be able to get my money back, then Rolex might be is definitely going to be a better, I don't want to call it an investment because no one knows what the market's going to do when it comes to anything. So now there is a much better chance you're going to get a bigger chunk of your money back, right? But I can tell you, I paid with an Invicta. If you get an Invicta watch that's not right now on sale, right? That's not being produced currently. Perfect example is my Sea Hunter with the mother of pearl. It's got the old school bezel. A perfect example is that watch. Now I just had that sold for $250 the other day. Unfortunately, the guy didn't read the listing, and the watch is pre-owned. It does have a few scratches in it, right? And he paid for it for $250, which I think is fair. I paid about $3 for it, pre-owned. Again, you can get Sea Hunters for $150. But if it's a model that's, again, timing is everything. If you get a model that's not readily available and you want it, you're going to have to pay for it. And that's what you'll see with prices. Prices really are dictated by supply and demand. That's pretty much how it is with everything. If something's really hot and desirable, the price is going to be higher if you can't get it. And I think that's a perfect reason why, you know, Rolex, there's this big shortage, right? I don't believe there is a shortage at all. It's just like with the ammo shortage. I think there was an ammo shortage. I don't think there is anymore. I think there's plenty of ammunition out there. The problem is a lot that they're really rationing it out to keep those prices high. Now, I don't have proof of that stuff. I'm just using my common sense, and that's what I believe, okay? And we all have our ideas, you know, and that's okay. But I think that, you know, Rolex is not a dumb company, right? You know, a company like that. And Invicta, you'll see it with Invicta as well. If you see a watch that comes out, like perfect examples right now, I know we're kind of getting off on a tangent a little bit, but right now, perfect example is a lot of the new releases are coming out on places like Shop HQ. This year, if you look at because I refer to Invicta stores, right? If you look at the amount of Invicta store sales that I get this year, it's not anywhere near what it was back several years ago. And what I've noticed is really that Invicta stores is kind of pushing their watches that they probably aren't brand new. They're not the newest models, and the newer stuff is going to Shop HQ where they can reach millions of people with the Shop HQ, you know, the home shopping network. So again, all these companies know what they're doing. You know, they know they want to maximize the amount of money for all this product. That's you know, capitalism at its finest. So again, you know, if you buy an Invicta watch, it doesn't mean that you can't sell it, okay? It just means that if you buy a watch that everybody and their brother has and they're still going to continue to make it, you're going to have a hard time selling it for what you paid. If a couple of years goes by, they stop making it, it's still a desirable model, then you're going to be able to sell it for sometimes more. You know, I have some Aragon watches that I had offers for more than I paid for them because they don't make them anymore. And I can say the same for Invicta as well. Other things like my Sub-Aqua Noma 3, not so much. I have it down to $169. It's a fair price. It's like brand new. I'll probably go down a little lower if I don't sell it because I just don't wear it. I paid probably about $250 for it. So, you know, again, I'm pretty happy to get some of my money back if I do get sick of something or want to change it up a little bit, you know. That's just kind of how it is with everything, right? So again, if you are going to look at the brand, the quality is amazing. So again, getting back to the question on how good are Invicta watches, you can put Invicta watches on par with brands that cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 easy. You know, I compare an Invicta Pro Diver with a Pagani design. Yep, they're on par. And in some regard, I even like the Pagani design better than the Invicta Pro Diver. You know, and I talked about that in other videos. But again, every model might be a little bit different. Just because I like Invicta doesn't mean every Invicta is like the best watch, right? But if we compare the quality with what you're getting in Invicta Pro Diver right now, you get for $60, right? It's a Submariner homage. If you want to get a Pro Diver for $60 with a Seiko NH35 movement, it's incredible. I mean, it is hands down the best value. And usually you see that same watch, black face, black bezel, that movement every single year around Christmas for the same price. It's the best time to try the brand. If you get into anything reserve level, great quality, but you are going to sacrifice most likely, usually the reserve level pieces in the $300 price ranges are going to have that Ronda movement, which is a quartz, which is a fine movement, but you're losing that automatic. Usually the automatics, I wish Invicta did more automatics. They just don't do a lot of them. You know, they could very easily do a lot more automatics than they do, whereas Aragon does a lot more automatics, which I tend to kind of like. But still, I mean, as far as the quality of the brand, it's amazing. You can compare it, again, it's on par. Bulova, Seiko, you know. Now, again, if we put them on their macro lens, a Grand Seiko is gonna have superior finishing, right? But under macro, the on paper differences, in your hands feeling it, you're not gonna feel any difference. You're not gonna say, "Oh man, this Seiko really blows this $68 L'Oreal away." You're just not gonna see it. You may not have some of the potential issues that you might have, like, you know, like this watch when I got it, right? Kind of, and this is a L'Oreal, not Invicta, but it can happen with any brand. Maybe a grittier. When I say gritty, I mean very mildly gritty. Maybe it's not butter smooth crown, right? I mean, maybe the bezel isn't perfect, right? I mean, but these are things that you should expect perfection with a $5,000 plus price tag. With Invicta, you know, your expectations are a little bit lower. And what I found with everybody who's bought the brand is that their expectations, if they don't know the brand, are pretty low. And then they get it and they're like, holy shit, this is pretty amazing, you know. And you see it with guys who honestly review the brand on YouTube. Guys who probably don't like the brand and they gave it a chance and they're like, wow, this is a pretty incredible value. And the honest people will tell you that anybody who says the brand sucks is just a complete sack of shit liar. So give the brand a chance, guys. Links are in the description. Check it out. I generally link to Invicta stores. You're going to get the best value on Invicta stores. You may not get the most current, brand new models, but check it out. See what you think, and let me know if you buy anything. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and take care.